Hello again, this is John. So just continuing on with my story. So I had been to Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I was coming off of the immunotherapy, which I'm told was not working, and we started our first round of targeted chemotherapy. Um, Now, I think this is the way I thought, but I think most people probably think of chemotherapy as something, you get an IV, you can't stop vomiting, your hair falls out, and my experience was entirely different. It wasn't pleasant at all, but it was entirely different. So the chemotherapy that I was on was a pill form. There were two different pills that you took together, in concert. So they complemented each other. Each one by itself wasn't very effective, but if you put them together, they were more effective. I'm not going to describe the name of any of this stuff because you kind of have to do your own research. If somebody out there faces a similar situation where, they have malignant melanoma brain cancer and they want to reach out to me and say, hey, can you tell me, specifically, what your chemotherapy was? And you can watch these videos to find out what the results, what the interactions with that were. But anyway, if you want more information, reach out directly, send me a, message or leave a comment and I'll try and help you out with that. So anyway, so the first chemotherapy, um, had some really, for me anyway, very serious side effects. One of them was the one that made the biggest impression on me was there was some bad taste in the back of my throat, and all food or drink tasted like poison. It was very difficult to eat anything. My poor wife, when I got home from the hospital, she knew this, and I was saying, I can't eat this. It just tastes awful. It tastes horrible. It has this awful chemical, taste to it. And she kept trying to make, be inventive and make these, what otherwise would be delicious, meals for me, but I couldn't eat any of it because it just tasted like poison. It was awful. It was horrible. So that was one side effect. Another side effect is I was developing a rash all over my body. Every inch of my body was covered with this rash. It was, angry, bright red, and it was eventually turning black. Um, I was going blind. I was the way you see things is you have peripheral vision, which is everything around here, and you have this little tiny bit, where you can focus and read things. If you have something and you're trying to read it and it's a little bit off to the side, you can't read it. It has to be right there in that central part of your vision. And that was getting dark. And the other thing that was happening is I was experiencing numbness on the right side of my body, which is, you know, more than likely unrelated to the brain cancer because that was in the right hemisphere, which affects, the left side of your body. Anyway, so, everything is going numb, and eventually I started hallucinating. And the way that went was, if my eyes were open, I'm looking around, everything appears normal. And as soon as I closed my eyes, everything was, I could see things. I could see I was in a whole different world. There was, people in that other world. And it was as soon as I closed my eyes, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I'm like, okay, here, I'm back to normal. And I think those were the major side effects. Um, and I was thinking, my wife was thinking, well, this has to be related to the chemotherapy. Um, but I, called the oncologist, and a nurse on duty said, "Oh, you're experiencing numbness. Could be a stroke. Go to the emergency room." Okay, well, that was a huge mistake. Went to the emergency room. They did a CT scan, immediately determined that there was not a stroke. And there I am in the hallway during COVID. There was somebody in the room right next door to me in the hallway. The person in the room had COVID, and everyone is like, wearing these spacesuits and stuff. And there I am in the hallway, basically unprotected. And they said, um, well, it shows that there wasn't a stroke, but we want to do an MRI. And by the way, there are no MRI slots available for today, so we're going to have to keep you overnight in the hospital. And I said, at that time, I said, well, can't I just go home? And they said, no, if you leave the hospital against medical advice, your insurance company won't pay. That was another lie. I'm like, why are people doing this? Why can't people just tell the truth? You're vulnerable, you're in this awful position, your life is kind of falling apart, and they have to lie to you. I just don't understand that. So it turned out that the first MRI slot wasn't available until the following evening. And of course, there was nobody available to interpret the MRI until the following morning. And they said, no, yeah, didn't have a stroke. Don't worry about it. You can go home now. Total waste of money. Total waste of you know, resources. It was stupid. And later on, my oncologist said, "Oh, I would have told you to go to the emergency room." Yeah, well, you wouldn't, but one of your staff, one of your nurses, told me to do that. And in addition to that, my wife was going to, travel to New Jersey to visit with a friend that had to get canceled. She had to, take me to the hospital and be all concerned about me. So anyway, um, eventually when the rash started turning black, and I was falling apart at that point. I couldn't hardly get out of bed. I absolutely could not take care of myself. I called up the oncologist. This is with Memorial Sloan Kettering, and Memorial Sloan Kettering has a urgent care. It's not like an ordinary urgent care. It's not. It's only for cancer patients, and it's by invitation only. You don't just show up and say, "I'm concerned." You call up your oncologist, your doctor with Sloan Kettering, and they will tell you whether or not to go to urgent care. So we went to urgent care, they did some tests, and I think one of the major problems was sodium levels. Sodium levels were way low, and that was the cause of, a lot of these issues. So I was hospitalized for about, 4 or 5 days at Sloan Kettering in New York City, and eventually, released to go home. And the doctors told my wife that I was about 2 days from dying. Had she done nothing, my wife saved me twice. She saved me the first time by calling up 911 um, because, um, you know, what would had happened then. And I didn't mention it before, and probably this is a good time to mention it, is, that the first day when I had the seizure, I had the seizure at home. I experienced none of this. My wife had to tell me after. She said they were putting in IVs, and I'm totally unconscious, not aware of anything. I had pulled out two IVs. I bit my tongue. There was blood everywhere, and and I just was, totally not aware of any of that stuff.
Have you found that to be very educational because that was just such a odd and unusual experience? So thanks so much for watching.